all the possible mounts for Riot's MMO. Make sure to watch to the end.
I was working on this video for about a month. It was supposed to be one quick return to talking about Riot's MMO one last time. Because people really wanted me to talk about mounts for some reason.
Well, there you go.
So I caved in and I thought, sure, we haven't talked about the MMO for quite some time. What harm would there be in hopping back in for some quick fun? Well,
we gotta know all the details about Riot's MMO. Come on, Necrit, you're slacking.
Well, here we go again. I was pretty sure I was done talking about Riot's MMO for some time.
Yeah, that was actually kind of a shock for me too. Greg Street just taken off, and he's like the face of this MMO. I mean, you know, people got to move on. They got to do different things. They got to keep moving up and on in the world. But yeah, it was kind of a shock.
We covered the already existing base world. We talked about the kinds of characters we can find there. We talked about the already established villains and bosses. We talked about the legendary weapons forged by the gods of this universe. We even talked about the fact that League gave them some amazing data for fair monetization.
Okay.
And still, people want me to talk about the still unannounced Riot MMO. Specifically, from the day I released my first video on Riot's MMO, people really wanted me to talk about mounts.
What can we ride? What can we ride off into the sunset of Riot's wonderful world in their MMO? We have to know. We have to know, Necrit.
Which is perhaps the worst topic to talk about. At least when we talked about items, there is the 90% chance you are gonna have fantasy weapons in a fantasy MMO.
Makes sense.
When it comes to mounts, those are bound to gameplay, about which we know nothing. We don't even know
True.
if riding mounts is gonna be part of the game. And
Oh, that would be kind of a letdown. Everybody's getting hyped up about mounts, and the game isn't even out at all yet. Nothing really to review yet. We're just speculating. And then there's not even mounts in the game. That would be, yeah, that would be kind of a letdown.
still, people really wanted me to talk about it. And in the end, it all changed when Riot revealed a new Legends of Runeterra card.
Oh.
A dog. That is very specifically a mount in this universe.
Okay.
So of course people went crazy, and here we are.
Wait, so that was just a muscular looking wiener dog, in my opinion, with horns. That's hilarious. I mean, I guess it's cool. I don't know. It looks very odd, though. Like, it's just a ripped wiener dog with horns.
And here we are. Thankfully, just like with every other topic I covered, the things I show you today are all already part of the universe.
Moose mount! Confirmed.
I am not going to show you anything made up. I am only going to show you things that are confirmed to be part of this world.
Okay.
And it is only going to be up to Riot to decide whether they want to put it in their game. So now,
Makes
because
sense.
people really went crazy over this topic for some reason, without further ado, let's talk about all the possible mounts that may appear in Riot's MMO.
Let's go.
Just like their weapons and armor change from region to region, so does the fauna and flora, which also means the mounts of this universe.
Yep,
Every
makes sense.
nation is riding different things into battle, from horses to basilisks to tanks. So before we get too
Can we get a tank? I would love to ride a tank into battle.
crazy, let's start with the normie, albeit a bit racist, Demacia. By
Go.
now you may know that Demacians like one thing.
I feel like Demacia is just basically like your generic humans. I don't know. That's just how it seems.
Defense. It doesn't matter if it's against magic or a blade. Big chunky armor is kind of part of their persona. And of course, their mounts reflect that.
Yeah.
Of course, every fantasy needs horses, so Demacia has their cavalry, which usually means horses stacked with armor.
Yep.
Especially when it comes to the Dauntless Vanguard, these horses look amazing. And this is probably gonna be the staple mount of this region.
So cool looking horses, yeah. I mean, that's fair to expect.
However, the Demacians also have a unique mount of their own, the Raptors. The Silverwing Raptors mostly come
What? This looks sick. Okay, that would be cool. That would be really cool.
from the mountains bordering the Freljord in the north. And so
Nice.
far we have seen 3 variants in the Demacian military. There is the unarmored Silverwing Lancer.
Okay.
This is perhaps the most common version of these. Then there is the armored Silverwing Vanguard, but the coolest of them all is the elite Silverwing Flight. This is the most prestigious version of this mount you can get in this universe. Now, of course, in the forests, Demacians also have the Great Horn Stags. These are mostly mounted by the scouts, who sometimes also use the Elkin, which is just a smaller version of them. And
So they just have moose and elk. That is what they ride. Moose and elk.
these are used by the scouts and the monster hunters.
Okay.
Of course, we can also mention the Badger Bears. We haven't seen anyone
Whoa, whoa, whoa! Badger bears. That looks sick. Nice. Okay, so this game could have some really, really cool mounts.
use one of these giant things as mounts, but come on. We can also mention the fact that Demacians craft their own Petricite constructs. These are essentially machines powered up by absorbed magic.
So, really, Demacians could have any kind of mount in the form of a construct. Or I should say, the construct can be formed into any kind of mount. That's kind of crazy. It could be like a sea dragon. It could be a bear. It could be a giant griffin that can fly. That's pretty cool.
And they come in many different shapes and sizes, from badgers to owl beasts to raptors. So I wouldn't be
Sick.
surprised if a Petricite construct became a mount at some point.
Nice.
Of course, we can also mention dragons. In the south, Demacia has the Dragon Guard, who are actively researching the local dragons. Which means there is a chance Demacians may end up taming some of the dragons.
Okay, ever since I started playing D&D and before that when I was a little kid, I've always loved dragons. I used to have a collection of dragon figurines on my dresser. I love dragons. And the idea of being able to ride dragons in the Riot world, that sounds amazing.
And lastly, there is the trusty Ram Hound. This is not just a dog, this is a mount. And here it is specifically ridden by Cytherea of Cloudfield.
We've already covered this. It is a wiener dog with horns.
And you bet if this game has mounts, there is no way Riot is passing on this one. But that's pretty much all the iconic things we can find in Demacia, so now let's move on to Noxus.
Okay.
Noxians mostly march into battles on their own to bolster their legions. However, we can mention that if you check out the Piltover trade map, you may find a place where Noxians are breeding a special kind of horses.
Okay.
These are the light Vindoran horses. And their lightweight makes them special because they can be used to traverse the deserts. Of course, this is a bit of foreshadowing because Noxus is actively trying to invade Shurima. Anyway, besides horses, the most common beast of Noxus are the basilisks.
Epic muscular lizard mount. It's like a demon lizard. Look at that thing. Glowing red eyes. Oh my goodness. That looks pretty cool.
These are used for riding as well as any hard work. Of course, here you can see the unarmored version, but
Okay.
we also have the slightly more elite armored versions of the basilisks. But
That
we
looks
also
cool.
have the epic undead variants resurrected with blood magic.
I guess that's the glowing red eyes then. Resurrected undead with blood magic. Holy cow. That looks crazy. I like it.
And even these are not the only armored beasts that Noxus is using. We also have armored mammoths. Of course,
Giant armored mammoths. That's incredible. I like it.
mammoths usually come from the Freljord, so it makes sense why Noxus would have them. They are expanding their territory everywhere, including the Freljord.
Okay.
Sometimes they also ride these. These creatures don't really have an official name.
It looks like a velociraptor without arms. That's what it looks like. Crazy.
A variant of these are called the Draclops, but not all of them fall under the same umbrella.
Okay.
Many people call them different things. For example, this one is Lady Henrietta Eliza Vespasian IV of Oronthis. Most people just call them lizards. They are badass, mostly immortal,
There you
and
go.
yes, the Yordle Kled is riding a variant of this. Of course, we can also
Ah.
mention that Noxians do have captured snappers. These creatures come from Ionia, so we'll talk about them a little bit later.
That's kind of cool. It kind of looks like a wingless dragon, but also with a turtle shell.
And when it comes to other forms of traveling, Noxians have ships. I don't think the players will be able to get these. So from here, let's go into
Maybe.
Shurima.
You never know.
If we get to see horses here, it will most likely be the Noxian breed.
Okay.
But thankfully, this region also has some very cool mounts besides just horses. The most common one are the Skalashi. These massive beasts of burden are...
So interesting. It's like a camel yak. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like the combination between a yak and a camel. Very interesting. But it's also huge. Look at the scale.
the simplest way to cross the deserts. And there is also a smaller version of these called the Ekasul goats. The one that will likely not be obtainable by the players, but one that might be a really cool quest hub are the Dorman.
Those are crazy. They're like city walkers. Like you could put a whole little village on top of these. That's crazy.
These gigantic beasts essentially serve as moving cities, and a lot of nomads live on these. The desert also has its own unique kind of rideable lions. These are...
That's me. That's me right there. I'm going to be all over that. I'm riding on a lion into battle. Hell yes.
Are mostly used by the golden armies of the capital. There is also a tribe worshipping Renekton that rides the lizards known as sand threshers.
Okay.
They can be tiny or massive, or they can have multiple heads. And some even found out how to tame their froggy relatives. There are also the rock bears, but I doubt we will be able to ride them. These hate to be disturbed.
Okay.
The same goes for the void corrupted being.
It's a giant dung beetle. Yes, let us tame and ride giant dung beetles.
I doubt we will be able to safely ride a Voidborn, although that would be a badass reward for some kind of a challenge. And lastly,
definitely.
they also have their own camels. I can already imagine the smell.
These have a weird face. I don't see this as a camel. It's more like a goat or something, or like a, I don't know, like a sheep face. So that's interesting. It's like a very furry camel with a sheep face.
So now, let's move on to the Freljord.
Alright.
Of course, in the north, horses would freeze. So instead, the Wintersclaw tribe decided to ride the Druvask boars.
Those look insane. I love the look of those. That's awesome. Look at those big tusks, too. And then the fangs on top of that. That's crazy. I love it.
These come in all shapes and sizes. Some can be pale and others can be dark.
Nice.
Some can be massive and others can be smaller. Regardless, these are some of the more popular mounts here.
Definitely.
We then have the Elnuks, who act as the cattle of this region.
They look so wise. And they're just cattle? Whoa, I love the look of these. They have such peaceful eyes.
Many people herd them for food, but they can also ride on them. The Scarthane also rides this beast.
Is that cat-like in origin or more like wolf-like? Well, whatever it is, it looks awesome. I love those eyes. The like almost white blue eyes.
It was never really explained what this one is.
Yeah.
But I know one thing for sure. It looks cool.
Yes.
And in some rare cases, you can also ride the wolves, because they are massive in this region. Of course, there are also
That's
the
awesome.
mentioned mammoths, but anything else would freeze here. So
Okay.
now, let's move on to Ionia. Ionia is all about people being one with the nature.
Hey, it's our friendly neighborhood wolf girl.
So really, Riot can turn any of the crazy beasts here into mounts. From the Windfarers to the Jeweled Protectors to the Scaled Snappers.
That jeweled protector one, that would be so cool. This thing would be insane as a mount. Look at that. It's like a white tiger with blue stripes, crystals along its back. Like griffin wings and 2 tails. This is so cool.
Protectors to the scaled snappers, which sometimes get kidnapped by the Noxians for entertainment. Truth be told, Ionians rarely ever use mounts because they don't really wanna bother Mother Nature. And when they
Makes
do,
sense.
they go all out. I'm not sure if Riot can actually pull this one off. Targon is a massive mountain. Everything is vertical. You don't have too many options for mounts here. There are 3 native animals that are somewhat used by the locals.
Okay.
The Ibik, the Tamu, and the Bolor. These
Okay.
could be potentially used as mounts. We also have the Targonian wingless dragons. A smaller
Whoa.
variant of these could be used as potential mounts.
That's cool.
The same also goes for the Stellar Corns. This is the closest you can get to unicorns in this.
Stellar corns. It's a goat unicorn, but like mixed with a griffin or something. It's got the griffin tail and wings. That's crazy looking.
Universe. And lastly, there are also the Ibex goats. Sometimes these goats are actually used to traverse the mountain. Because, well, goats are actually good at that.
Yeah.
But besides them, Targon doesn't really have too many mounts. So
Makes sense.
now let's move on to Bilgewater. Bilgewater is in a similar boat. Except instead of climbing mountains, everyone here is using ships and boats. And still, there is one new rideable thing here.
Okay.
That thing! It's a seahorse.
It is literally just a seahorse. I can tell from the look of it. Wow.
Get it? No, seriously, I don't think we ever got a name for this beast. But it is obviously a mount.
Right.
Besides this, there are also the shark-ish creatures that could be used as mounts.
Look at that. That looked insane. Look at this thing. It just looks crazy.
Shark-ish creatures that could be used as mounts. And there are also the weavers, which
Salamanders. Well, if we can ride a salamander, everything will be fine.
look really creepy, if I may be honest. But
They do.
that's really it for Bilgewater. Unless you wanna ride a gullfish or a waft rat, you don't really have too many options here.
No thanks.
In Piltover and Zone, however, we get a different story. Using a combination of magic and engineering, the people here get to ride in style. If we
Let's
ignore
hear
the
it.
fact that sometimes they get to make giant mechs or even working submarines, as well as high-tech airships, they also have the classic motorcycles.
There you
Some
go.
of these are used by the Wardens, but they do also have more casual variants. One of these is even owned by Seraphine.
Ooh.
The Pharaoh's family also creates legitimate cars.
There you go. That was a legitimate looking automobile right there. Very nice.
Legitimate cars. But in my opinion, the coolest mount we might be able to get here is the one that was shown in one of Arcane's trailers, even though it wasn't really featured in the show itself. And that's the Disc Runner. The first
Oh.
time we got in contact with this one was actually in Jinx's story. She basically crashed a party, blew everything up for Jinx's story. The Disc Runner.
That actually looks really cool. Super steampunky, like single person ride, just rolling around on a disc like that. That'd be pretty sick.
The first time we got in contact with this one was actually in Jinx's story. She basically crashed a party, blew everything up for fun, stole one of these disc runners and
Sounds like Jinx.
fled. This might actually be the most iconic mount from Piltover.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
it will definitely not be the coolest mount. That title goes to the hoverboards, which were even featured in one
Hoverboards? Yes, that would be sick.
of the Piltover cinematics. But that's really it for mechs, so now let's move on to the Shadow Isles.
Okay.
Before people start freaking out about riding centaurs, these are just people. When the ruination happened, the soldiers of the Iron Order got
Yeah.
fused with their horses. I don't think they would appreciate you riding on them.
Like Hecarim.
Anyway, most of the things on the Shadow Isles are monsters. There is not much you can just commonly find here.
It's like a wood toad. It's literally like a giant toad made of wood. Interesting.
But you know, we could fancy riding the Shark Chariot.
That would be cool. I like that a lot. That looks awesome. A shark chariot.
I don't think this one would really work, but it exists. But then we actually have two Beasts of Shadow that would actually work.
Okay.
There is the Doom Beast.
Whoa, that looks crazy.
Which is a combination of a cat and Cthulhu, but better yet, the Dusk Rider. A
Okay, now we're talking. A two-headed winged horse beast. This looks crazy.
six-legged nightmare of two horses and a bat. If we get anything from the Shadow Isles, it better be this one. And lastly, we can't really talk about Ishtal. Ishtal is a small region where everyone is using elemental magic to travel around.
Yeah.
Also, we simply don't know too much about this region. So
I mean, hey, if we can just float around on our little magical air circles or something, that's fine. I mean, that works, right?
instead, how about we talk about Bandle City, the magical realm of the Yordles.
Okay.
They are tiny, so surely they can ride anything, right? Well, it just so happens to be that the favorite mount of the Yordles are mechs.
There
They
you
have
go.
a mech mount based on every region.
Was that Vagar? I think I just saw Vagar. Hold on a second. Yep, that's Vagar. That's awesome.
Every region. Freljordian Rambots, Piltovan mechs, Targonian mech forcers, Demacian
Whoa.
war machines,
Oh,
and
God.
even Ionian shadow tech walkers.
Okay.
They have it all. But never forget that all of these are based on Riot's legendary board game.
Okay.
Mechs versus minions, which foreshadowed 4 mounts.
There we go. That was pretty good. I enjoyed that a lot. We got a good look at some possible mounts. Obviously, the dragons or dragon-looking ones are the most appealing to me. I have a bias. But in general, they do look pretty awesome. Well, what do you guys think? Are there any mounts that you're looking forward to? Let me know in the comments and leave a like, a subscribe, and I'll see you next time.